Hello my fellow friends, it's Chris from Shughead Gaming, and here's my review for Tarzan VR. Developed by Stonepunk Studios, published by Funtrain, and releasing for PC VR headsets November 24th, 2020. This review will cover both Episode 1, The Great Ape, and Episode 2, The Jagged Edge, with number 1 costing $13, number 2 costing $9, or alternatively you can pick up the 2-episode bundle for $17. Of course, this is an estimate only as it depends on your region. A franchise dating back to 1912, Tarzan is certainly a deep cut. Created by Edgar Rice Burroughs over 100 years ago, this classic character returns in Tarzan VR, an episodic single-player adventure that lets you swing and fight your way through the jungle in an effort to, you guessed it, save Jane. Looking like a comic book brought to life, stay with me as I tear this apart and see if there's any substance behind the license. As always guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. It not only helps out my channel, but VR gaming as a whole. And if you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing. And for video updates, make sure you hit that bell icon. Kicking things off, let's take a look at graphics. With its cel-shaded visual style, vibrant colors, and a selection of 2D and 3D textures, Tarzan in VR is a very cool experience that can look great on some decent hardware. With the recommended minimum specs of a 1060, Tarzan can look a little janky though on its lowest visual settings, with a significant amount of jagged edges, in addition to shadow effects that pop in close enough to be pretty distracting. Fortunately, higher end hardware allows the user to crank up the resolution and texture quality until it's razor sharp, while also increasing the render distance of shadow effects. The resulting visuals can be rather stunning at times. Unfortunately, the overall experience is tarnished somewhat by some game stutter when entering action scenes that plagued me even on my 2080 Ti, leading me to think that the game could use some additional optimization. In fact, given that the starting area with its open island is the only part of the game that has ambitions beyond the rather linear corridor-based campaign, it may have been best to simply lock the game down to the campaign stages in an effort to decrease the game's hardware requirements. Don't get me wrong though, as the opening island that you are free to explore when running on high settings can be absolutely gorgeous, giving me a taste of what Ark Survival Evolved could maybe one day look like in VR. The linear campaign stages, as they are, come off rather boring with their uninspired level design, which really is unfortunate considering the often beautiful cel-shaded visuals that rarely get to impress beyond their initial impression. Character animations throughout are certainly not a standout either, with wooden and scripted animations and characters that often seem to hover above the jungle floor. However, while this certainly makes the game feel a little rough around the edges, it feels less obvious here due to the comic book visual style and rather over-the-top and silly gameplay. And it would seem Stonepunk Studios is very aware that this visual style is its strength here in Tarzan, as it rarely misses an opportunity to throw all types of comic book visual tropes at you, whether it's aggressive motion trails or the obligatory boom, smash, and crash pop-out worlds made so famous in comic books and, well, okay, the original Batman as well. Sound is up next.
It's the gift of Tarzan.
It's gorgeous.
Be careful ahead.
Tarzan is not afraid. Exact timing and bravery.
At its core, Tarzan VR is absolutely an homage to film serials of the 1930s, going as far to throw in sound bites from old Tarzan films, often acting as the commentary from the title character himself. An inclusion that is sure to delight fans of the film origins of the King of the Jungle. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that that fan base will be the ones predominantly playing Tarzan VR, and as one who only has a passing knowledge of the character and no real fan connection, I found the inclusion of these sound bites often cheapen the experience, simply sounding just like that, old sound bites, as opposed to an actual character performance. The remaining cast of in-game characters, however, have been recorded specifically for the game, and depending on how you approach it, sound either perfectly campy for the tone of this game world or insufferably generic, feeling more like they came from a PS1 era action game, and not a good one. This, unfortunately, isn't helped by main characters that simply don't react to you or your actions, spouting off their lines like an old Disney theme park ride, regardless of whether you leave or not. Enemy minions don't fare much better either, with their repetitive and generic trash talking. However, like I said, it depends on how you approach this, as I'm sure for those who simply enjoy the camp and ridiculousness of it all, the janky sound mix here, cartoon effects, and all come off as just fun and stylistically appropriate for this type of title. One area though that the game's sound design certainly succeeds is on the music side of things, offering an original soundtrack that feels appropriately epic and seems to nicely straddle both the classic themes and the action video game beats. Anytime a video game offers up the chance to own the soundtrack separately, it usually indicates some time and effort were applied to the music side of things. And here with Tarzan VR, that unfortunately is very evident, as it actually tends to lift the whole sound mix up on its shoulders at times, often making up for other audio shortcomings. And that brings us to gameplay. Being split into 3 chapters, this review will cover the first 2, with the third coming sometime in 2021. Starting on a small island that you can run around and explore, you would be inclined to get excited thinking you were in store for an open-world jungle exploration adventure. Unfortunately, upon discovering your tree fort and getting the rundown from your house parrot, you will quickly realize that this episodic affair is much less ambitious than those opening moments would lead you to believe. Clocking in at a rather brief 30 to 45 minutes, Episode 1 sees Jane kidnapped and Tarzan in hot pursuit. Acting very much as an introduction to the primary game controls, you are taught how to climb, jump, and smash things, making up the majority of your skill set, along with running, which is best accomplished by the default of swinging your arms. This can be changed in the settings to a button press, however, on my linked Quest 2, this feature never worked. Movement of Tarzan is fortunately quick and nimble, but lacked any feeling of weight to the movement system, resulting in a movement and consequently combat system that felt really quick and jerky. This lack of weight carries over to the combat as well, which in itself essentially consists of flailing your arms at the laughably bad AI minions while throwing them around like ragdolls. And while this at times reminded me of the dumb fun found in games like Drunken Barfight and Gorn, Tarzan never fully commits to this hilarity of ridiculousness, resulting in some short-lived fun that quickly gets old. Where Tarzan VR is at its best, and appropriately so, is when it introduces its vine swinging mechanic. Swinging sections are fun, fluid, and fast, opening up swing attacks and Spider-Man-like moments that are almost worth the price of admission alone. Unfortunately, these are shockingly few and far between in the first episode, leaving us to continue on foot outside of a few very brief swinging sections. Fortunately, episode 2 is where the training wheels come off, if only slightly, with a much heavier focus on vine swinging and verticality. This, when combined with the inclusion of a slingshot in your arsenal, allows you to bypass a few of Tarzan's less entertaining parts by staying in the trees and avoiding hand-to-hand combat almost entirely by attacking at range. Chapter 2 sees the quest to save Jane continue, so don't expect any deep story here, as like the first chapter, the narrative, what there is of it, serves little else than to push along the linear arcade-style action. And while Chapter 2 is certainly a more to-the-point experience that sheds the first tutorials-esque nature and instead focuses on the fun parts, it is also really short, clocking in at only around 20 to 30 minutes before ending in another cliffhanger that leads us into Chapter 3. As a result, it feels like Tarzan is only starting to find its flow before it's all over. Tarzan is controlled using 2 motion controllers, and while it can be played seated, I recommend playing standing, as it simply made the whole experience more immersive and slightly less cumbersome. Tracking was decent with both the touch controllers on my Quest 2 and the controllers on the Reverb G2, however, neither felt fantastic due to the game's rather floaty nature to everything. For those who are concerned with VR sickness, just be aware that this is a full movement title. Click turning and blinders are available, but even with those on, this is certainly not a title for those without their VR legs yet. Movement is still quick, and you won't find teleportation here. And finally, that brings us to fun factor and my final review. Tarzan VR is a short and linear set of episodes that can certainly offer up some dumb VR fun when it focuses on its stronger gameplay mechanics like vine swinging. Unfortunately, by the time it sheds its tutorial vibes and actually lets the player play like Tarzan, it's over. None of which is helped either by a demanding graphics engine, some janky combat controls, and some incredibly linear gameplay that really lacks any depth beyond what you see on screen. As you guys know, I hate numbered review scores and instead rate games on a basis of buy it, burn it, or wait on it, as well as some recommendations on who this might appeal to more. Tarzan VR for me is definitely a wait for a sale, as I would wait until all 3 chapters are released and priced under $20 for the bundle. And even then, purchase knowing this will be some straight up arcade action with little else to chew on outside of the collectibles you can find. That being said, if, on the chance, you are a big Tarzan fan, there could be enough fan service here in the form of Easter eggs and throwbacks to justify the purchase as is, but keep your expectations in check. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. If you like this video, please hit that like button, and if you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing. And of course, for video updates, make sure you hit that bell icon. Thanks for stopping by, guys, and I'll catch you on my next video.